couple weeks ago now, I think. As you can see on your handout and at your positions, we've got a few questions that we would suggest you could use to cover if you'd like. If indeed you don't want to use those questions or something else, let us know and we'll put those together for you and have them ready. The trick that we have to be really careful as it relates to these kinds of interviews is that we ask everybody the same bevy of questions, so that one candidate doesn't get a different set of questioning than another. Kind of like a job interview that we conduct. So, not to say that follow-up questions pursuant to information that they give you, that they provide, isn't appropriate, because it is. We have to start with the same basis of questioning. As you can see, we've got a number of candidates kind of scheduled for the evening of the 14th. However, we also have the 15th lined out in the event that you may want to use Wednesday evening instead of Tuesday evening. Now, I will tell you, however, we do have a couple items that we absolutely need to cover with you on Tuesday night as a part of that work session. And so part of the direction you may want to give tonight would be whether or not you want to go ahead and set this aside for Wednesday, or if you want to try to consolidate both meetings, both purposes, I guess you'd say, into one night for that Tuesday. And so that's something to consider if you'd like. As far as the agenda is concerned for that Tuesday evening, the 14th, we have a utility agreement ordinance that we want to go over with you, as well as we think we need to go over some briefing elements, if you will, as it relates to your role for the CDBG/WCDA program that you're going to be receiving applications for. And it's evolving into a fairly significant conversation. We think we may need that time on the 14th to go over that as well. So we bring that up to you tonight to see if in fact you want to go ahead and move into 2 nights next week, or if you want to try to make Tuesday night kind of a super meeting and cover all your items in one meeting for next week.
How much time do you think the WCDA meeting or the WCDA portion will take?
I think it'll take at least a half hour. And you may want to offer some additional direction as it relates to hearing from all the applicants separately as well. So, from that night moving forward. So, the 21st is what we have as sort of your formal, approval, if you will. But nonetheless, the 14th could be pretty critical for that whole process for you.
All right. Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. So, we're looking at almost 2 hours of the interview schedule itself.
At least. At
least, then deliberation, in executive session. So, which could take, I think, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour itself. So, I think that we need to take those into consideration as we're looking at trying to load up both of those things. So I just want to put that out there. So I'm willing to, if we're here till 10 o'clock, I suppose we're here till 10 o'clock, but it depends upon what we want to try to do. So.
Councilman Cathy.
I was going to say, is there any way we could move the start of our regular meeting up to 4 o'clock and then delay these till 5:30 and try to get it all done on Tuesday night? Because I'm trying to catch an airplane Thursday morning. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Mr. Mayor, we could do whatever council would like us to do. Absolutely. Those are all options.
Okay, so Tuesday night super session or Wednesday added in there, half and half?
I'm game for either, whatever everybody else needs or wants. Sounds like Mr. Cathy almost needs us to do it on Tuesday.
If we do it on Tuesday, I think that is a good idea to try to just back up a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm for that.
You guys okay in backing it up then? All right. Is it okay if we back the start time up to 4 o'clock then?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We'll be sure to put that out in our notice. And we'll stick to the 5:30, is that what I heard, start time?
That would give us an hour and a half to cover the things you're concerned about.
Perfect. So we will, Mr. Mayor, if I understand the direction correctly, start the traditional work session portion of the meeting at 4?
4 o'clock?
Then we'll start the interviews at 5:30. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Perfect.
And we'll just stay until it's done.
Excellent.
Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday.
You'll just have to reach out to all these people and reschedule them all.
No problem. That's okay. Mr. Mayor, we do have a unique request of one of the applicants. Do you mind if I turn the time over to Pete for just a second to go over that?
Okay.
While he's getting up there, thank you all. I appreciate it.
Evening, Council. The one request we had was from Jayala Quest. She was one of the applicants. She will actually be traveling next week. She was hoping that she could participate via GoToMeeting if that was acceptable to the council.
This she could what?
Go-to meeting?
She'll be
Virtual.
traveling that week, so she has to participate by GoToMeeting. So, yep. The only other minor issue is typically what we've done in the past is we've just handed them these 5 questions and said, please speak for 10 minutes and try to answer all of them at the same, as part of your presentation. But certainly we could do it as a more traditional interview format if you prefer, just asking and answering, but of course that is also up to council's discretion.
I think it tends to put, if you don't mind, I think it tends to put people at a disadvantage when you do that. Some people are better speakers, more eloquent, and can take up the whole 10 minutes when somebody else can answer it in 5 minutes and may not seem as involved. So to me, it's not the best way to do it, in my opinion. If we want a true gauge of who we're interviewing, I think they need to be posed the questions, given an opportunity to answer each individual one. That's just my opinion. And I do, if this is the spot, I wanted to add a question or ask if we could add a particular question. I think I would like to ask them if they've currently been following the council and if they are aware of our current issues we're facing. They're coming in midterm. We're going to need somebody that's kind of in the swing of things a little bit, I guess. So I think that's a really important question that we ask them. Thank you.
Councilman Gamera.
Thank you, Mayor. I would concur with Councilman now. That's in line with essentially the question I had wanted to include, which was, have you been following council actions and maybe potentially, are there things that you've seen council do that you agree with, or maybe things that you had more questions about or weren't necessarily on the same page about? And I guess I would just like to, I also agree with Councilman Nell. I'd like it to be a little bit more casual in nature, I guess, not just tell people to talk for 10 minutes, but because we have 10 applicants and we're doing it in addition to everything else, I think it's important we stick to those 10-minute, even if we feel like we have follow-up questions, we need to stick to it, otherwise we're going to double the amount of time we're here, but thank you.
Councilman now.
Do we sequester when we're doing these? In other words, do we have all 10 of them in the same room, and so number 10 has an advantage of hearing what everybody else has said? Do we sequester them when we're asking these questions?
Mr. Mayor, we do not. You're correct. Person number 10 likely has the opportunity to listen to all 10 interviews, or 9 interviews, if you will. This would not be something that we could take into executive session, I don't believe.
It wouldn't need to be executive, but there would not be a problem with sequestering them and bringing them in one at a time and asking them their questions.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I think that the difficulty is that this is considered a public meeting, and so the interview will be broadcast. There really isn't any basis by which we can tell people not to come into the room. Sure. So it is a challenge, admittedly, and without a doubt, if person number 10 decided they wanted to listen to all 10 of them or 9 of them again, they certainly could. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, 2 things, but real quick with the candidate you're talking about, Pete. She's wanting to do go-to meetings, so the only difference is it's virtual. We're still going to be asking her the questions. She's still going to be answering the questions, just like anybody that would be in the room.
Yes, Your Honor, that's
Okay. And the way I look at it, in today's world, we've done that for the last year. I don't really see a problem with doing that, especially if she's traveling and can't be here. If somebody else disagrees, then certainly let me know. And then the other thing I would ask is that if we're all going to come up with different questions that we want to add to this. So is it possible we'll make sure that if there's any other questions that need to be added to this, to make sure that Renee gets those by Friday. And then that way we can look over them over the weekend and then get a final list of what the questions will be so that we're ready to go on Tuesday.
Do I need to re-email that then, or did you already, Mark, write that down?
I think we're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything on? Do you have anything else on this, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir, unless there's any other questions.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the sole source requests for the grit removal system, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we do have 2 sole source requests that we want to go over with you tonight. It's pretty typical that when we have a sole source request that we review it with you, in pre-meeting, just to give you a bit of a heads up that maybe the memo may not have addressed. That opportunity to ask questions and so forth, we think is important for these kinds of specific requests that we don't get all the time. So for that, I've asked Andrew to go over these 2 items with you if we could, so that you, again, have that opportunity to ask any questions you might need.
Okay.
Mayor, Council, I'll cover both topics at once here. The first one is for the grit removal system that was probably last brand new back in the 1980s. We have since rebuilt and replaced some of the pumps, but we are now replacing the grit removal system. Same components, so it fits in exactly the same pipe gallery. Electrical components will all match. And believe it or not, there are not many outfits that can actually produce this kind of stuff. So it's a sole source request for just shy of, or just over $138,000. The other one is also at the wastewater treatment plant. This is to rebuild and rehab and refurbish centrifuge number 1 with Andritz. Again, they are the original manufacturer that was put in the early 2000s, I believe. So it's 10 to 15, 20 years old now, as due for his 24,000 hour service. So, and that's for just shy of $115,000. But again, it'll match up with existing piping configuration and power configuration at the plant. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody with any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on either one of those items? Okay, move on to the mutual aid agreement with Cheyenne. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first time that this sitting council has seen a renewal of an agreement of this sort. And so we want to take just a quick minute to give you, again, kind of a preview that maybe the memo didn't cover for you, and the opportunity to ask any questions. It's a really good arrangement that we have with the city of Cheyenne, and not atypical for a lot of agencies around the country to do, for agencies that are similarly staffed and similarly complex and so on. If I could ask the chief to take just a quick minute to go over some of the basic tenets of this, and again give you the opportunity to ask a question or two. That was really the intent of this item tonight.
Okay, Chief.
Thank you, Council. Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity. The City of Cheyenne has reached out to us to update our existing MOU to provide shared police services in the event of, should that need arise. If you think back to this last summer, Cheyenne responded to our call for assistance and came with officers as a function of that MOU that we already had in place with them. State statute allows officers to work outside of their jurisdiction upon written request of the other jurisdiction. And this MOU between these two entities gets that step out of the way so that in an emergency we can respond to assist them or vice versa at a moment's notice. And historically, the department has helped out during frontier days and things like that, but the events of last summer are probably the best example of why this MOU is important. Any questions from anybody? Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chief. All right, agenda review, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You do have a number of items this evening to go through, a number of which are follow-up items from previous meetings. A number of items on consent, of course, one of which you're going to hear about from an individual who asked to have some time on the agenda pertaining to the project proposal that Morad Park would have a part in. We also have the opportunity to renew our relationship with the school district as it relates to the SRO program. And beyond that, I don't have really anything else that I wanted to bring to your attention this evening.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Take about a 3-minute break before we start.
Thank you.
Pete. Regular council meeting to order. Chair would entertain a motion to by minute action, excuse the absence of council member Johnson.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, second by Councilwoman Ingebretson. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye. Motion passed.
Council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. Please join the Vice Mayor in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next year. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the August 17th, 2021 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on August 27th, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the August 17th, 2021 executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ingebretson, second by Councilman Cathy. Any amendments? Discussion? And please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the September 7th, 2021 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Ingebretson, second by Councilman Gamroth. Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
Thank you.
And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
We would like to welcome Trish Simroth from the Salvation Army, Cody Allen, Executive Director of Joshua Storehouse, and Tony Waddell, Executive Director of the Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies. Please come forward and share with us about September Hunger Action Month. Looks like it's just you, Cody.
Well, Tony was supposed to be the one to give the speech. Not sure where he's at, but I'm Cody Allen with Joshua Storehouse, and we would just like to invite everybody to come and volunteer at all the wonderful food pantries here in town to help us end hunger here in Natrona County.
Awesome. You want to come up here and we'll do a proclamation? Okay, proclamation that says, whereas addressing the food insecurity needs of children, youth, men, women, seniors, and active military and veterans today is fundamental to the future of Casper. And whereas hunger and poverty are issues of vital concern in Natrona County, where 15.3% of people struggle with hunger and 1 in every 4 children do not know where their next meal will come from. And whereas Food Bank of Wyoming, a member of the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks, and their local partners provide over 12 million meals across Wyoming annually. And whereas it is our responsibility as citizens of Casper to learn about hunger and to do our part in reducing hunger 1 meal at a time, either through donations, social media shares, or volunteer shifts. And whereas Food Bank of Wyoming, its generous funders, volunteers, and local partner agencies are committed to educating citizens on the role of food banks in hunger relief efforts and to bring awareness to the need for more resources and attention to hunger and food insecurity issues in our community. And whereas the month of September has been designated as Hunger Action Month in order to bring attention to food insecurities in our communities. Now, therefore, I, Stephen K. Friel, Mayor of the City of Casper, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Hunger Action Month and encourage all citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of food insecurity and how it impacts our nation, state, county, and communities. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Casper, Wyoming to be affixed this 7th day of September 2021. Okay, now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we ask the following. Please state your name and address. Direct all questions or comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal attacks on staff or council will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to our city manager. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members. Presentations will be limited to 5 minutes, and the duplication of speakers will not be allowed, nor will any time extensions be permitted. Please note that public hearings or ordinances each have their own comment period, so please hold your comment on these items until we reach them. We had a citizen request to address council tonight. Ms. Lori Gobble, and we will begin with your comments, please.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Laurie Gobble. I live at 4033 West 39th Street here in Casper, and I've lived here since 2002. I walk probably 340 to 350 days a year at Morad Park. Yes, that is my car there when it's 0. Sometimes I just do 10 minutes, so if it's cold or very windy. And I am here to dispute the fencing area of the proposed wetland by the Audubon Society. It takes off quite a bit of the shaded area of the park on the west end there. The map that was published with the agenda shows quite a bit of more wetland than what actually is, because the blue does overlay onto what would be on Google Maps or Google Earth. And I do have something to put up if you want to on the overhead. I ran out of printer ink, so I didn't quite have enough for everybody. But in it, it shows that the wetlands, I don't know if you guys have an existing copy of it, the wetland shows that it's a huge portion. And I walked it just today. It's totally dry. Now, the cattail part where that hot spring is, We don't really like the dogs in there anyway because they come out smelling like black goo. And most of those people that walk their dogs at the dog park are walking their house dogs. So I would like to see the proposed area be surveyed so we can be certain of the exact fence path and possibly have some input from other Morad Park users. This project appears to be being pushed through with little to no notice to the community. I noticed tonight's meeting is after the long weekend. So one of the accessible areas with shade, since that recent remodel made the interior a marsh. So I did have a question. Are there no other places other than an off-leash dog park where those specific birds that were listed in the Oil City News article found? And right now, the Walmart parking lot is currently draining into Morad Park. That might help some of those wetlands. The wetlands were changed and disturbed when that project was done, and it might have been about 15 years ago. The one reason I'm speaking out tonight is because I didn't speak out much when they changed the drainage, when they reinforced the shoreline and took out the Russian olives. They created 3 ponds of wetlands joined by marshes, one of them on the north side, which would be on the north side of the existing driveway, and 2 on the south side, of which there used to be a land bridge that went to the interior park on that side, which would enable the dogs to get a drink about halfway through. And then on the other side where there are a couple big cottonwood trees, and they recently planted 3 cottonwood trees, and then they trenched the whole area. You can't hardly walk your dog there. Actually, it appears to be getting a little bit drier now. You can almost do it sometimes. So many people do enjoy Morad Park, even though without dogs, especially during this pandemic. There were a lot of people walking that didn't always walk, whether you had a dog or not. Walking is a 10-foot or 6-foot distance sport anyway. I would like to see Morad Park fenced from CY and Wyoming Boulevards. We've all talked about that, just to keep our dogs out of the highway and stuff. Morad is a very great dog park, and it's recognized statewide, including being on TripAdvisor. I don't know if it's in the top 10, but it's got to be in right up there in the top, probably in the state, I would assume. I know Bozeman has several nice dog parks. Colorado Springs has top 20 in the nation. It's a little bit bigger, but it doesn't have that beautiful river that we do.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I mean, I've got some maps and stuff if you need help, so.
Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lori, was it, for coming to speak to us this evening?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I go to Morad Park infrequently. It sounds like you're there a lot. Could you confirm more me? I apologize. I meant to get down there over the weekend to confirm up for myself, but I was told by several other people who use the park frequently that the Off-Leash Dog Park area ends before the proposed fencing area. Can you speak to that one way or another?
The Off-Leash Park goes to the edge of the Audubon Society property, as far as I know. That's where the sign is. And if you look at the map, I mean, I have one here. If you go directly north, I guess it would be south from there. There is a little pond right there where that first part of the park, where the first part of the proposed fencing is. And then they're taking that jag to, if you're facing the mountain to the left, that's the existing trail. And I certainly could make some more copies and pass them to you guys if you need. But I ran out of printer ink. I thought I had enough.
They're going to put it up on the screen here.
Okay. Yes, see that corner where it goes by the pathway, cuts down straight south, and then it goes east a ways. And that's the part that you're really starting to infringe upon the non-wetlands part. There is that big warm spring. I've only been back there when it was really cold and everything's frozen except right around that spring, just to see, is it really a spring or was it drainage? And there's a lot of cattails right through there too, which is really visible if you have it on the Google map, which I have right here. And then I have the one from the Oil City News that maybe exaggerates a little bit of that blue. Here's the one from the Oil City News. So as you can see, it doesn't go quite as far as what the blue from the Oil City News map goes. See how that blue shows it's almost all the way? The particular trail I'm looking at is just just to the left of that blue there. And if you look at the other map that I printed out from Google Maps, you can see the trail that goes into there. So you see above where the big wetland area is, go straight up there, you can see that little trail. It goes through the trees and it's beautiful. Right now they've got a drainage thing through there because of the construction of the pathway down through there. But the deer and all have already made they've already just ignored it and made their own path there anyway. And it's dry, I would say 360, 355 days a year. It's only wet just right after a rain or the melt of a 3 foot. And I'd be more than happy to take anyone down there to show them what specifically I'm talking about, if there's any questions. Thanks.
Councilman Nell.
So if you had your ruthers, I guess where it's comes east and then turns to the north right there, that little V, you'd rather come to the left of the pond as I'm
Well, it goes to the, no, it goes to the east and then south. It's just, south is down.
Right, so right there where it goes south and then starts to head back east a little, or I guess, yeah, I guess that'd be east. You would rather see that fence come to the left of that pond?
No, 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 just a little closer to the pond.
Because I walked it, and then we also were very clear with the folks that were asking to do this. And I just don't see the impedance to the dogs. I see plenty of other area available for the dogs, including access to the water. And so this wasn't hastily done. We did our research, and it seemed to me like it was more than appropriate what they were asking to do. So other than maybe the one trail you're talking about, you know, it just seems appropriate to me.
Well, the access to the water at the river is great, but the access to those swamps in the middle leaves something to be desired. Until that recent remodel, you could get your dogs through there without getting them wet and smelling like the black swamp. I mean, they come out with just black on their feet. You know, pretty much need to take them home and wash their feet before you let them in the house. So those don't, as far as I'm concerned, don't count for letting me have my dog because she goes in the house again. She smells for a day. So I don't like her in that pond either, the one with the cattails that you're talking about. Right. But you see the distance between the pond with the cattails to the blue and then to where there's that corner? That's what I'm talking about. Maybe make it run straight, about whatever feet from the pond, straight through, and then we'll still have access to that entire shaded area. The only, there's a fence there, I don't know how you get in there. It's thick, right there.
Well, I know the ideology behind them putting it there was to put a buffer between human, dog, and that area to allow the birds to come back. That was the idea of pushing that fence out. I know that for sure. Whether or not it's completely appropriate, I can't answer that, but I can tell you why they pushed that out there was to create a buffer.
The Morad Park is one of the very few areas where you are allowed to have your dog off leash in the city, though, especially with the recent ordinances that came up lately, giving criminal penalties or whatever if you have your dog off this property. So there's very few areas that you can go off leash for a dog. And I'm really just kind of talking about 20 feet, maybe 30 feet, depending on what it is, from that proposed map there. And I didn't find out about this till about Thursday. My daughter mentioned something about it. I started surfing the website, and that's when I found it. And found it on the agenda and found it. I didn't even see it last week. It hasn't been published in the paper yet either. So the minutes from last week's meeting that I saw. So no one knew about it. So I don't know if there may just be a few of us here tonight. If you have a little bit notice, we could probably get a couple more.
Well, I can certainly tell you that there's been no attempt to try to sneak this through or anything else. We publicize everything we do, and our meetings are all public, and this was done during a public meeting. So,
last week?
It's been 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago, actually, because last week we didn't meet, and the week before was if I'm correct, was a work session, so it would have been 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I thought it was done during the work session.
It was discussed during the work session, but did we have a first reading on this, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, we did talk about this in a work session forum. So a first reading would not have occurred, given that it's a consent agenda item. It won't need 3 readings or multiple readings, if you will. And so that reading will take place tonight.
And that is one reason I wanted to be here, was for the first reading. I've been here for third readings or second readings, and it seems like the first one is the one you really need to be here for, if you have a question or something. But I'd be more than happy. I don't really have access to good software, but I could get a pen and paper out and make a few maps and give you guys all a copy if you'd like it, and just show you or meet you out there and show you what I'm talking about. I think it's a good project and stuff, but I was thinking this was a dog park. And like I say, there's so few areas. There's a fenced area over in McKenzie. I've been one time. It's like an acre. There's that little one at Tate Pump House. That's really small, about the size of this building here, this room. So.
Well, I know the folks that are proposing it are here tonight, so maybe you can talk with them and see if you guys can find something amicable. I mean, it's a suggestion.
Okay. Well, it didn't work the last time when I appeared. I still ended up with something different than what originally had been proposed to the city council meeting. So it was certainly, I've talked to the person privately, and no, nothing happened at all. So I'd rather have the protection of have the city or have the city's blessing before we do something like this, because I don't want to, we're all here, and I don't mind the multiple use. I just hate it when someone takes my use, and like I say, I didn't speak before, and pretty much we lost the interior of the park to wetlands. So I just hate to say, but what's going to happen 5 years from now? Oh, well, that's wetlands. It's like, well, it didn't used to be wetlands, but yeah, it is now. Once you, dredge out a few ponds and ditch to the river, it certainly turns into where you can't really take your dogs there, unless you want to. That's a kind of a. It's a little too far for me to jump. And I've actually been into the swamp area one time, and I had to wash my shoes. I thought it was dry there, and it wasn't. So.
Councilman Gamero.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd personally be happy to meet you there one afternoon and do the walk. Like I said, I meant to get out there beforehand and just didn't. But my question's actually more for the city manager. The ponds that are there, could you speak to the intent of the creation of those ponds? My understanding was that it was to take the drainage from Walmart and provide some level of filtration before it entered the river. Were those ponds for dogs, or was it for filtration and reducing pollution to the river? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Gamroth, you've hit the nail on the head. It was more for a phytoremediation process for the water that was already coming into the area. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Ingbretz, and then I'll come back to you.
So if I remember right, doesn't Audubon own most of this land? We just had a small corner that we allowed on city property that we don't actually own. This is not even our property.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, you've hit the nail on the head as well. The area that's in hash mark right here is the only portion that the city would manage as it relates to this project. The rest of this is not under the influence of the city or the city council. This is Audubon, and it goes into game and fish area, as you can see, by virtue of those property lines. And that project will take place regardless of how council views it.
Councilman Cassidy.
One thing I wanted to mention is I noticed in your email when you said you were going to request to speak tonight that you mentioned that there were only 2 off-leash dog parks. There is a third one, which is out on East 2nd Street, just behind where the cancer clinic is on East 2nd Street, between it and Het 6 Road.
And I have not been out there yet. I live in Wolf Creek, and I know that's a new one, and how big is it? Is it the same 49 acres as this? Or is it
I'm
like
not
10?
sure how big it is.
That's
We're talking about 1.6 acres is all we're going to lose.
I'm
out
only
of your
talking about the
49
30
acres.
feet, though.
Do what?
I really only objecting to that 30 feet that's on the, that has the existing trails. They're not paved, but they are. But no, I do need to go out there, but it's probably a 25-minute drive from my house.
The only reason I mentioned it is you had mentioned that there were only 2 in your email. And so I wanted to make sure you were aware that there was that third off-leash
I
dog.
apologize, I forgot about that one.
Not a
You
problem.
guys just put it up this last year, didn't you? It was just a year or 2 old, so. But I actually wanted to know, did the game and fish approve it also already.
Councilman Nell.
When this comes to us later and the gentlemen speak, would it be appropriate to ask them if we can move that fence 30 feet so the dogs can have some shade and use the existing paths? Or is this a set in stone deal, I guess is what I'm asking.
Mr. Mayor, this is a consent agenda item, but that's not to say that if the other folks who are here tonight decide to stand up during the public comment period, that questions couldn't be directed toward them in that regard.
Any other questions? Councilman Cathy.
I would assume as well that for second reading, we could actually remove it from consent to be able to discuss amongst all parties as well. Is that a reasonable assessment?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, this is a one reading deal, and so tonight would be your night to say yay or nay.
Okay.
Yeah, or table, as you would, if you decide to remove it from consent.
Councilman Nell.
Thank you, sir. Before we get into a situation where it looks like this may have to be tabled until we can talk to both parties, would it, if they definitely want their answer tonight, would it not be appropriate to behoove them to come to the mic and let's have a discussion about this right now? Or do we want to table it and talk about it another day, or do we want to vote on it, I guess? I'm trying to create some options here to maybe create some happiness among everybody.
Mr. Mayor, I certainly think it's within your purview to invite members of the audience that are here to speak to that. I happen to have noticed that there is a game and fish expert in the room this evening, as well as the representatives of the project management, if you will. And so it certainly is council's, purview to request that type of comment.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. To me, if we had had a line out the door of several people coming in concerned about 10 feet, then I would probably want to say we need to re-examine this. But we also have almost 50 acres dedicated for dogs. And so to me, that is very generous on how we do this. So to me, I don't think tabling it is appropriate at this juncture. I feel like we should move forward with it and vote on this consent item. If I felt as if we had had multiple emails, multiple people coming tonight to discuss, then I would feel moved to that direction. But I don't. I think the Game and Fish have signed off on this. The Audubon Society, it's 10 feet is what we're discussing here. In addition, we're talking about 50 acres that is dedicated to dogs. And this is fantastic. It's something that is not seen much in the state of Wyoming. And so this is a nice gift in this state or in our city. So for me, I believe that we are working well within that. I think the young man here doing his Eagle Scout project for this is here listening. He worked hard on this as well. I feel like we should move forward with this. I think it's prudent to do that. So Mayor, that's where my thought is.
One more question.
Councilman Nell.
Are there other shaded areas within the dog park?
On the asphalt, or on the concrete. And there's one from a continuation of the path I'm talking about that continues to go all the way also to the concrete. So it goes from about where that yellow corner is, all the way through, see, that would be east for another 100 feet or so. And I believe it's a game trail that's probably been there, hundreds or thousands of years.
But my question was within the 50-acre dog park, are there other shaded areas for the animals?
Yes, there are.
Okay, thank you.
Not right now. We'll get to the consent. Okay. Any other questions for? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And Kyle, or Mr. Gamroth, if you want to, if this works out, we can contact information and I can show you what I'm talking about.
Give you a card.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to address council? Please come forward. There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Zachariah Hutchinson, 3125 Garden Creek Road. I just wanted to clarify one thing with the map. It's hard to tell, you know, when you have a map of this resolution, but the fence and my fellow community member, the fence actually will not impact that shaded area. It will stop west of it. There are 3 dead trees that are within the boundary of the fence. So it actually will come down off that game trail that my fellow community member was referring to, and it won't actually impact that shaded area. They might have to use, you know, a little creativity on a new trail, creating, you know, some new stomping grounds in there, but it won't impact the shaded area at all. It is 100% outside of the shaded area when you actually look at the GPS coordinates of the trail and not just a lower resolution map. So I did want to just clarify that for you, Mr. Mayor, and for council, and my fellow community member.
All right, any questions? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Matt Pollock, address 3030 Energy Lane here in Casper. I am here representing the Casper Regional Leadership Team of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, and we are in favor of this proposed action. It is a relatively small 1.6 acre portion of the city's property that will be fenced off. That does not preclude you from use and enjoyment of that. It is just to serve as a physical barrier to keep canines out of this important wetland area.
Any questions? Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize, maybe Zach would have been an appropriate person to ask this question to as well. There was a constituent that had asked if there was a specific study, you know, was there a specific study done as far as the impact of dogs in this habitat, or was it mostly observational on the part of Game and Fish and Marie Audubon that, you know, looking back over the years, there's a strong belief that the dogs have impacted the aviary wildlife in the area, or was there a, you know, a formal study, I guess, done is my question. Thank you.
I'll let Mr. Hutchison address that issue.
Thank you for that question. So no, there's no specific study done on this particular wetland complex. It's other peer-reviewed published studies on the impacts of dogs on nesting birds. And then I don't want to call it anecdotal because this site has been surveyed since it was purchased from Marie Audubon for many years. The surveying stopped years after the off-leash dog area was allowed within the Morad natural area because there was less and less to be surveying for. And so, no, there was no specific study done on it. It was a combination of understanding how off-leash dogs impact nesting marsh birds, shorebirds, waterfowl, and its impact on this area because it's immediately adjacent.
Any other questions? Combined between the land that you have and the city's land, how much? What is the acreage of that?
When you account for Game and Fish, Marie Audubon Society, and the 1.6 acres from the city, it's approximately 9 acres.
Right.
And it will be used and still accessible for education opportunities for schools and for the general public to be able to access. Marie Audubon will also be funding interpretive signage for the area, interpreting, you know, the importance of wetlands, highlighting, you know, how wetlands do impact our drinking water quality, as was done obviously through the Morad Park wetland mitigation project that was mentioned this evening.
Okay. Mr. Manager, so it's 9 acres that they have, and then we still have 48.9 acres of Morad Park for off-leash, correct?
Mr. Mayor, that is my understanding.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else who would like to address council?
My name is Rod Talbot. I live at 1722 West Ridge Circle. I do have dogs and I go down to Morad Park. This is the first time I've seen the map. I'm not going to argue too much with the map itself. That particular pond is one of the only wet ponds year-round. But my biggest concern after seeing the map is what kind of fencing are we dealing with? Are we dealing with barbed wire fence, sheep fence, cattle fence? Because it's not just the dogs we got to think about. There's deer that live back in behind the big pond, and they come through Morad Park in order to drink, in order to eat. So there's all sorts of wildlife in that area that moves through Morad Park. And a fence, depending on the type of fence, it could be damaging. And I think that really needs to be taken into consideration.
Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Mayor. So that was mentioned, the type of fencing. I believe it was Councilman Cathy asked about the fencing, and perhaps Game and Fish is more qualified to speak on it, or Zach from Marie Audubon. But what was told to us is it'd be smooth rail, no barbed wire or anything like that. It sounds like Game and Fish has a barbed wire type fence currently that would be taken down, and this would be consistent throughout. Is it appropriate to ask Game and Fish? Again, I could be throwing out what I remember about the conversation, but I know those guys had very specific descriptions of the fence.
We'll let Mr. Pollock come back up and explain what type of fence is going in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman Gamroth. I would say that fencing and wildlife always creates some issues. And we have to weigh the benefits versus the downside in any kind of fencing decision. The type of fence that we are proposing to put in would be a sheep fence with a fairly low top, be a 36-inch, I think, top, so deer can traverse the area easily. There will be no barbed wire. It would be topped with smooth wire, and it would allow deer to pass over the top. It would be restrictive to any antelope, although I have never observed any antelope in that area. However, there are certainly deer there, but birds obviously can pass through, and it would keep most dogs, other than dogs that want to jump the fence, it would keep them out. So as I say, there's pros and cons always to any fencing and wildlife movement, but the primary reason for putting up the fence is to maintain the effectiveness of the habitat, primarily for birds, on the Audubon property. And it would, the proposed fence would include this entire wetland complex as opposed to cutting it off. And the fence that is on Game and Fish property that we will remove is a remnant fence from when we purchased the property in the early 90s. It was a property division fence, but it is a probably about a 10-foot tall cyclone type fence, which is very restrictive for both birds and ungulates. So overall, I'm opposed to fencing, but in this case, I think the benefits outweigh the downside. And there will be no barbed wire, so there shouldn't be any concerns about dogs or humans getting cut on wire.
Councilman Gamers.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Pollock, could you also, my understanding is that the fence isn't 100% contained when animals, it's to keep the dogs out, but animals could also go around the fence from the south side. Is that correct? Or is it a pretty contained area with fencing? Thank you.
That's correct. It'll be essentially closed on roughly 3 out of 4 sides. On the Game and Fish property, it's going to extend to the south a short ways, and then we are going to do create some natural barriers with wildlife plantings. So the primary purpose is to discourage dogs from heading into that area as they would come down the path. They should be on a leash at that point anyway, but this would discourage them from coming into the area, but it would still allow for wildlife passage.
Thank you.
Okay, I can't see because the clock's here, and I know that Amber asked to ask a question. I just realized that, so I don't know if she still has the question. But Councilmember Pollock, do you still have a question?
It's been asked and answered for me. Thank you.
It's been answered. Okay. All right. Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Morris. I have recently gained the nickname the Sandcastle Lady. My address is 1311 Warwick in Casper, Wyoming. I've been proud to call Casper my home since 1990 when I moved here from Rollins to begin my teaching career. And for the past 32 years, I have felt safe in our community. And I've enjoyed watching the evening downtown blossom from being basically a ghost town to a thriving, very fun place to be at the David Street Station. I first witnessed the increased security and the police presence at the David Street Station the night of July 1st, as I packed and carved the sand that would become the sandcastle in the landscaping of the Wyoming Central Federal Credit Union. I had heard that there had been some violence during the previous art walks, but it wasn't until later in the evening when groups of 15 to 20 teenagers could be seen and heard cruising back and forth on foot through the station that I caught the first glimpse of the problem that was occurring downtown. Their language was coarse and their energy was very unsettling. And what may have unfolded that night will never be known, as the entire area was cleared by a downpour of rain. Most everyone, including the vendors, packed up and went home. I stayed until 11 p.m. when the castle was complete. On August 4th, I was once again kneeling in sand with my back to the crowd, building a sandcastle in the landscaping of the David Street Station when groups of teens began to collect and gather. The events of the next few hours changed my level of understanding and the awareness of the severity of the problem of the David Street Station. If you have never seen this crowd in person, you may still not understand. If you have not heard the obscenities echo off the brick walls or felt the reckless, carefree energy they radiate, you still may be thinking that this is kids being kids. When the words fell into the rhythm of chanting and the energy spilled over into fueling vandal attempts to destroy property of the station, my paradigm shifted and an alarming concern grew. Casper no longer felt safe. I was in a place where I did not belong. So I cleaned up my buckets and my tools and I went home. And I, for the first time, left a sandcastle incomplete. The castle I built that night did not stand long. The vandals took it, and then they took a large rock, and they smashed in the first castle that I mentioned at the credit union. They were not quite satisfied. They threw pieces of the castle across the parking lot, down the street, and into the gutter. I know that you agree with me and many members of the community that this can't continue and it needs to stop. The David Street Station can and should be a gathering place for families and a meeting place for friends. We need to take back the security of the station, but how? If David Street Station had cameras covering every angle, that would be great. If the new cameras could be monitored live from a secure location and controlled remotely to change the area of surveillance, that would be even better. It would then be possible to allow trained volunteers or paid staff to securely assist in the monitoring of the station during large events or popular evenings. It would facilitate monitoring a large area while providing focused documentation and informed intervention. I am also proposing taking security one step further, or should I say, a giant step up. I'm asking the City of Casper to consider assisting the David Street Station to either purchase their own tactical drone and train a certified pilot, or offer the police department drone and an accompanying pilot for their use during high-risk events. If a situation arises where the police presence is warranted, the drone could be launched. It could fly into the location where suspicious activity is occurring. Equipped with a loudspeaker, it could announce its presence. Attention, this area is under surveillance and is being recorded as potential evidence in future investigations. Please stand by. When a drone appears and makes such an announcement, one's reflex is to look up. This is perfect. The cameras on board will capture the image of every person in the area. Surely, some individuals will wish to flee, as some of the perpetrators, the teenagers, have done in the past. If it's the instigator that's causing the alarm that wishes to flee, and they do, the camera is portable. It can follow. What goes through the mind of a 15-year-old who is being a punk, perhaps even breaking the law, when a camera-equipped tactical drone bearing the word police or security is hovering overhead, capturing every event as evidence? What is your next move? Will you take a risk and continue, or will you stop and utter a silent prayer, pleading that the police, the judge, or heaven forbid, your parents don't discover who you are and what you have been doing? That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Gamros.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Catherine, for coming to speak to us tonight. Thank you also for the time and effort you spent building the sandcastles. I know people really appreciate it. They're really cool. So thank you. Not something you have to do. You're simply, doing it out of the generosity of your heart. I appreciate it. You bring up several good ideas. I serve as liaison to the board of the Downtown Development Authority for City Council, and it's certainly something we've been discussing in our meetings. Of course, limited by resources, staff. They have a pretty small staff that they work with over there. So, whether it's a possibility or not, it's a conversation we're having as far as whether we have those resources at the DDA. I don't know if you saw, but I did just want to give a special shout out to Boys and Girls Club. I think Mercer Family Resource, there's probably several different agencies in town that have been doing the teen nights down there. I think they've done 2, and they intend on doing 2 or 3 more. So thankfully, they've got several hundred kids out there doing good family-friendly activities. I think last Thursday they were doing even a free spar night for maybe, some of those kids that need to get out some of that energy. But I haven't heard how that went. So I am thankful to the agencies in town that are collaborating, partnering together to try to address that. And just wanted to let you know, thank you for your time and effort doing the sandcastles, and also wanted to let you know that we're exploring that on the DDA side of things to see what options are available to us. But thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilman Nell.
I must say, your sandcastles aren't just cool. You've created quite a buzz in town with those. They're pretty incredible. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. And a lot of citizens have commented, and I just think they're amazing. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I enjoy doing it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address council? Okay, please read the consent agenda titles.
Establishing September 21st, 2021 as the public hearing date for consideration of the following 5 items. Item 8A1A, a vacation and replat of lots 2 through 18, Block 21, lots 2 through 8, Block 23, Trails West Estates, and Lot 8, Block 4, and Lot 9, Block 5, Prairie Park Estates to create the Trails West Estates number 6 subdivision. Item 8A1B, an annexation of Tract 31, Dowler number 3 subdivision, and establishing zoning of said tract as M1 limited industrial. Item 8A1C, a zone change of the property located at 129 North Elk Street, which was formerly the Willard School, which is lot 12, block 97, Butler's Edition, from zoning classification ED Educational District to C2 General Business. Item 8A1D, updating and amending Chapter 13.03, the utility billing and collection. Item 8A1E, soliciting presentations, public views, comments, and recommendations for potential sponsorship of grant applications for the Wyoming Community Development Authority's Community Block Grant funded Neighborhood Development Plan Program. Item 8A2, establishing November 2nd, 2021 as the public hearing date for consideration of certification of annexation compliance to determine if the annexation of Tract 31, Dollar Number 3 subdivision complies with Wyoming state statutes. And item 8A3, establishing December 21st, 2021 as the public hearing date for consideration of the disposition of city-owned property located near the southwest corner of South Beverly Street and East 4th Streets.
The chair would entertain a motion to by minute action establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Nell. Any abstention or nay votes?
I've got several abstentions. I'm abstaining from 8A1A, 8A1B, 8A1D, 8A2.
Okay, please cast your votes.
I was waiting for Councilman.
Councilman Pollock, can you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Okay, thank you. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed. And the abstentions of Councilmember Engebretson noted.
Okay, I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of retail liquor license number 11 from JJBB LLC, doing business as Party Time Liquor, located at 1335 South McKinley, to Hayden and Laughlin Incorporated, doing business as Local Liquor and Lounge, located at 4120 Centennial Hills, Suite 200. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Tremmel to J. Carter Napier, dated August 12, 2021. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated August 23, 2021. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated August 30, 2021. And exhibit number 4, liquor license application, filed July 21, 21.
Okay, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the only thing that I would add would be that they anticipate the new business in its new location starting on October 1. And so I just want to be sure council is aware of that time frame.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of retail liquor license number 11 to please approach the lectern. All right, at this time, I'd ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the transfer of retail liquor license number 11 to please approach the lectern. All right, there being no one to speak for or against the transfer of retail liquor license number 11, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of retail liquor license number 11.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Gamroth, second by Councilman Cathy. Discussion? Mr. City Manager, I actually have a question. This particular location is being transferred from Party Time currently. So once this leaves, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that will no longer be able to be used as, isn't once a liquor license leaves an establishment that has a drive-through, then it's done?
Mr. Mayor, if your question is whether or not that building can be used for a drive-up liquor establishment, I would say that that's probably not the case. And so once that business is removed, I would suggest that that would not be eligible for another drive-up liquor establishment.
Okay, and I guess just to clarify, I believe by public law, once an establishment leaves, we don't authorize drive-through liquor establishments anymore, correct? Mr. City Attorney. Please.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Yes, the limitation on those is very limited. So once the business is closed and that license has been transferred from that property, unless there's someone immediately following who's going to use the drive-up option, that option is no longer available.
Okay. Just wanted to put that out there, make the public aware. Any other discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. I think she's probably going to abstain.
I'd like to abstain, please.
And please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Pollock noted, motion passed.
I'm going to abstain out of this next discussion, so Vice Mayor Pacheco will run it.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a zone change of the back 9 addition.
Chair to entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Kamroth, seconded by Councilman Cathy. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote. Sorry, Kristen.
I didn't want to interrupt you. With Mayor Friel and Councilwoman Ingebretson abstaining, motion passed.
I don't know what I was doing. My apologies.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a vacation, replat, subdivision agreement, and zone change for the Trails West Estates Number 5 Addition subdivision in the city of Casper, Wyoming.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilman Gamroth. Council now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With Councilmember Ingebretson and Mayor Friel's abstention noted, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance ratifying all actions previously taken concerning the City of Casper, Wyoming Local Assessment District Number 157, confirming the proceedings, assessment roll, and assessment therefore, assessing the amounts and said roll on the property in the said district, creating a lien therefore, and prescribing the priority therefore, directing the certification of said roll by the city clerk and transmittal thereof to the city treasurer, prescribing notice that said assessment shall be paid and the terms thereof, providing for the payment of said assessment, creating a special and a separate fund therefore, providing for the collection of delinquent assessments, and prescribing various details concerning said provisions.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilwoman Ingebretson. Council now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Discussion? Amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 12A1, approving and adopting the Casper Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's Public Participation Plan. Item 12A2, an amendment to the contract with WWC Engineering for the Casper Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's Mills to Robertson Road Trail Extension Plan. Item 12A3, approving and adopting the Casper Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's 5-year transit strategic development plan. Item 12A4, a memorandum of understanding with the City of Cheyenne Police Department for extraterritorial law enforcement assistance. Item 12A5, a transportation alternatives program agreement with the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the Paradise Valley to Robertson Road Bridge project. Item 12A6, an agreement with Modern Electric Company for the CPU generator project. Item 12A7, an agreement with Crown Construction LLC for the 2021 solid waste asphalt improvements project. Item 12A8, a memorandum of understanding with the Natrona County School District for school resource officer services. Item 12A9, a change order number 2 with Wayne Coleman Construction, Inc. for the Industrial Avenue Drainage and Surfacing Improvements Project. And item 12A10, a fencing the Murad Park portion of the wetland complex extending onto Murray Audubon Society and Game and Fish property.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Engebretson, second by Vice Mayor Pacheco. Mr. City Manager, would you like to make any comments on these items? No, sir. Okay, any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent minute action titles.
Item 13A1, appointing Carol Johnson to the Casper Planning and Zoning Commission. Item 13A2, authorizing the discharge of $8,969 in uncollectible accounts receivable balances. And item 13A3, rejecting all bids received for the Fire Station Number 3 roof replacement project.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Nell, second by Councilwoman Engebretson. Any abstention or nay votes? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Okay, at this time, we ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilmember Pollock.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Barely, but yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to, I'll talk loud. I'll say this one so that people can hear me better. So nothing tonight.
Okay.
I don't know.
What?
Councilwoman Engebretson.
I had attended drug court, and they would like to get before council, whether it's a work session, probably a work session, I'm assuming. They used to do reports quite often, and would like to get on the agenda, please. That is all I have.
Okay. Councilman Gamros.
Nothing this evening.
Whoa. I know. All right. Councilman Nell.
I won't let him down, Kyle. All right. Just a few things. Number one, wonderful proclamation tonight for the hunger initiative in our town. There are people that are hungry, and the more we give as a community, the better. But this is also, September is also Suicide Awareness Month, and now more than ever, especially with the prevalence of COVID possibly making its way back in, we need to be aware of mental illness and aware of how we can help our neighbors at times like that. So please have patience with each other, I guess is a good way to put it. Secondly, I attended the University of Wyoming football game Saturday. We got our first win of the year. It was super fun. So if you get a chance to go to Laramie and take in a game, by all means support our state university. And lastly, please don't forget, kids are back in school now. I've been out a few times, and I think people are still driving like it's summertime. So just be aware that there are children, And pay attention to the school bus signs on the buses. They now have cameras, and they will ticket you if you run that bus. They have a way to catch you now. And so just be mindful of the kids. Thank you.
Councilman Cathy.
A couple of things. This is more a point of order, but I noticed tonight that it requires 5 votes in the affirmative to pass anything. And on our land issues, with 2 abstentions and with 2 people absent.
You only have 1 absent. Councilmember Pollock's right there. You're good.
But basically, we needed all 5 people to vote affirmatively to be able to pass those land issues.
We did.
Because
we did. Councilmember Pollock voted in.
Yeah, we had 5. That's what I'm getting at is that if one other person was absent or abstained, that would have gone down as a no vote. So I wanted people to be aware and for us to be thinking that if we have something that is a little more than just a 3rd reading, that it may not be wise to bring them forward at a meeting where Councilman Johnson may not be here and we don't have a replacement for former council member Lutz, because we're down to 7, and with 2 abstentions, all 5 people have to vote positively of the remaining 5 to be able to pass anything.
Okay.
So that's a thought, because I have seen that happen in planning and zoning. So I wanted to bring that up. Secondly, I understand the people with scooters are having a wonderful time on those 2 ramps that I mentioned at the parking lot, that they can catch about 18 inches of air going up those 2 ramps, and that is occurring later on in the evening. So again, this is something to go along with the other ladies' concerns about what's going on in the downtown area, that's something we may need to be aware of. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Metropolitan Planning Organization and Jeremy and the hard work that they did putting all of that stuff together. It's not easy, so thank you for all your hard work. A lot of interviews, a lot of things that you guys had to do. So thank you, Liz. Thank you, Jeremy, and the staff and everything you guys are doing. Much appreciate it. I went to the Casper Council of People with Disabilities meeting. A couple things just to report. The website is live on the City of Casper website. So if you're interested in that, you can visit that website, and it highlights the work that the CCPD is doing, and they're doing some fantastic things. We do want to try to get them in here to come and maybe highlight and have a conversation with us, like the LGBTQ committee came in. So we like to get the CCPD in here to have that conversation as well, but I think they're going to reach out to the city staff to try to do that as well. They do raise money, and they're going to do that through the calendar. They're going to do it with service animals and highlight the service animals in a calendar. So I told them to come here and hit us up, and I said we would make sure every the council members bought a calendar, or 2 or 3. Maybe we'll throw it that the mayor will buy 2 or 3 calendars. Put that on the record.
With the vice mayor's money.
No, they also had a conversation about trying to figure out disability access for riders in Uber. So that's an issue that I didn't even think of, but that's sometimes an issue because some of the riders aren't always using Link or Dial a Ride. So that's something that I did not even consider. So they're working with Uber and having those conversations of how they can have disability access for riders. So that's something. My final note that I wanted to make that I didn't want to find it, to give it when we had Catherine, I think is her name, with the sand, which is frustrating in the sense of 20-some years of working with youth, that there are good sides to young people, that they are amazing. I do have hope in that. We do have a young man here getting his Eagle Scout, and so that's a highlight of what young people can do. And so they do some amazing things, but they can also make some pretty poor choices. And so my hope is that I know the work that the mayor's been working with the Boys and Girls Club and other people, as Kyle had mentioned, that we're going to continue to reach out and do those things. And I know that the chief is concerned about that and working with it. So my hope is that we can continue to move in that direction to do those things. And so my hope is that you know that young people certainly have make some pretty shoddy choices in their life. And so I've also seen the other side where they do make those choices and they rise to the occasion and they redeem themselves down the road. And that is my hope, and that we can do that and make the David Street Station a safe place for everyone to go down there, for families and young people as well. So thank you very much for coming up here and sharing your story, and hopefully we can make something happen. So thank you.
Just a segue off the back of what Councilman Cathy said, with the bird scooters, I know that I was talking to Jackie with downtown development with David Street Station. They were having problems down there as far as those scooters leaving black marks and stuff inside of the station itself. So they contacted Bird and they geofenced that area. So if you go in there, your scooter quits working. So maybe in a situation like this, if we got them launching them off of places and somebody's going to get hurt, we can identify those locations, get a hold of Bird, and just have them geofence those particular locations, and that way they won't work, and the problem is resolved. Thursday night, this Thursday night will be the last night for the Boys and Girls Club and all the other people all the other groups that have been helping out down at David Street Station. It'll be the last event of the summer down there that they'll be having. Last week, the All-American Center, the boxing club was down there and pretty much stole the show. Everybody else who was down there that had events said that everybody was more watching the boxing taking place. So been doing great things down there, a lot of turnout, and I appreciate everything again that they've done, and especially the Boys and Girls Club for everything they've done on that. And with that being said, Boys and Girls Club is having a fundraiser tomorrow morning, their annual breakfast. It's 6:30 in the morning, and they will be honoring the Eads family for Jason's Friends Foundation. So if anybody can make that, I think there's still seats available up there. Other than that, that's all I have. So the next meeting of the City Council will be a work session, and it'll also be the interview for the candidates of Ward 1. And that will be taking place Tuesdays, or Super Tuesday, September 14th, 2021, in the council meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 in the council chambers. And I'll correct myself, the work session and the interviews will take place in the council chambers. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding land acquisition. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session, reconvene this regular council meeting solely for the purposes of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, second by Councilman Gamroth. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into an executive session having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present. So please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Greater than 2/3 majority of the council present vote in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session. Staying here.